That's what I tried to tell Mel. I didn't realize.
All right. I'd like to go ahead and call the public hearing section of the Warrenton Board of Alderman meeting for Tuesday, November 20th, 2018 in session. Mr. Graville, if you would please come to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. We have multiple public hearings on for tonight.
Just so everybody knows, this is Chris Graville, is our city attorney, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. The first public hearing we have on for tonight is Lot 32, Arlington Way Site Plan. That is with regards to a request to develop a triplex. All of Lot 32 of Oakview Villas and Arlington condos. It's 1014, 1016, and 1018 Arlington Way. For purposes of public hearing, I'd ask that the minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting be made a part of the record by reference. The comprehensive plan made a part of the record by reference. And the publication notice for the public hearing in front of Planning and Zoning Commission be made a part of the record. And the public hearing notice put in the paper for tonight's public hearing be made a part of the record by reference. I don't know if there's any representative of the owner here to answer any questions. I think Brandon from Lewis and Beatty's here, but I don't know if he has anything to present. And this was approved by Planning Commission.
Open to the public to come up and speak just on the behalf of Lot 32 and the site plan 126 on Arlington Way. Please come to the podium, state your name, speak your business. We'll give you 5 minutes to speak. Not seeing anybody, we'll move on.
All right, so the next public hearing is with regards to that same property. It's a conditional use permit to allow for multifamily development on those lots, as I stated in the previous public hearing. For purposes of this public hearing, I would ask that the publication notifications in Warren County Record for all public hearings be made a part of the record. Copy of the ordinances of the City of Warrenton be made a part of the record by reference, and also the comprehensive plan of the City of Warrenton. And once again, Brandon from Lewis and Beatty is here tonight to answer any questions that the board or mayor may have.
Be duly noted. If anybody'd like to speak on Lot 32 Arlington Way, the conditional use permit 60, please step forward now, state your name, and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. Not seeing anyone, we'll move on.
Next public hearing is for Warrenton Storage Unit, Site Plan 127. This is the request for a site plan approval for Warrenton Storage Units. I believe the owner of the owner under contract is here to speak on their behalf. If there's any questions by the mayor and board, for purposes of public hearing, I would ask that the publication notifications in the Warren County Record be made a part of the record for reference. Copy of the ordinance of the city be made a part of the record by reference, and also a copy of the site plan and the planning and zoning report from the meeting itself.
Once again, this is on Warrenton Storage Units Site Plan 127. If anybody'd like to come forward and speak, please come up, state your name, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Yeah, my name is Dennis Brady, and I own, along with my son, North Highway 47 Storage. And I have a letter, if I may read it, from Jamie at Safe Lock Storage. And she wrote a letter here, if I could read it to you. Her sentiments and mine pretty similar.
That's fine.
So it says, I'll just read everything just as she wrote it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for all for your time. My name is Jamie, and I am the property manager for Safe Lock Storage Warrenton. I want to start off by saying thank you to Mr. Cussell, that would be Scott, from the Planning and Zoning Board for his no vote earlier this month. I know Mr. Brady has expressed concerns with his declining occupancy stats over the last year and his declined call volume. We are currently another storage property not in Warrenton, but just outside the city limits in Warren County. And we have just over 38,000 square feet in existing buildings. And for the last 2 months, we've been under construction building new buildings that are 5,700 square feet, another that is 9,750 square feet, third building that is 1,000, and the biggest one is 12,000 square feet. Most of our expansion is climate controlled. I'm not convinced that our area is in need of more storage. If we hadn't started this process over 2 years ago, I would have been against our own property expansion. My boss stated this started this project over 2 years ago, but was expanding in O'Fallon and Wentzville at the same time. So our expansion got pushed back, our concrete pad sat vacant for a long time. However, we began our expansion here before Mr. Brady added his newest building, before Jackie O's put up their buildings, and before North Winds did their expansion next to PSC Metals. We're not against a free market and encourage competition, but does this city really need, with the proposed facility, 5 storage properties in less than a 3-mile stretch? I'm not certain what kinds of studies the proposed owner of the new property wanting to come in has done, but after being out here and living on site for nearly the last 13 years, I don't see it. We're all for the city continuing to grow, but a good point has been brought up that storage facilities don't bring in a lot of money for the city because they don't generate much revenue. And this proposed property will be no different. They'll have some retail moving supplies, but definitely not a cash flow for the city when it comes to revenue. We sell a lot of retail items here thanks to referrals from other local businesses like Rob's U-Haul and Going Postal. And again, we understand that that's not helping the city out very much. I would like everyone to take a look at all the other properties that are out there in the city of Warrenton, especially those that are struggling to stay afloat as it is before moving forward with another storage facility. There are at least 2 other small storage facilities in Warrenton and even more in the county. Some may have to close. So it is worth it to the board to have more mom and pop storage places, for example, security storage on Veterans Memorial Parkway or Highway U over on the 9/11 Center, go out of business just to bring in another storage place that you've already stated in the planning and zoning meeting doesn't bring in a lot of money for the city. I'm not the owner of this property, just the manager at this location, but I've spoken to my boss and these are his thoughts as well. I know this probably won't do any good if most of the minds are already made up, but it was worth a shot to have this addressed. I unfortunately couldn't be there as our business hours are until 6 p.m. and this meeting started tonight at 6. So I asked Mr. Brady if he'd speak for me. Okay, on my behalf, I want to say that we had put up our first storage building about 14 years ago. And it took a while to get it going. And then we put up another storage unit, and this was a little over 2 years ago. And things went really well, and we were filling up. We had most everything rented out. And so we decided to put up a third building 15 months ago. And at this present time, in the last 15 months, we have 2 occupants in that building. And there's 38 units in that building. And we have vacancies in our original 2. So I really think that, not really in the best interest of other businesses and the board to approve this. I think that's all I have to say.
Dr. Brady, the
Yes.
letter you read was from whom?
I'm sorry,
The letter that you read was from whom?
from Jamie at Safe Lock Storage. They're just west of Walmart on the North Outer Road.
Next to Mort Tractor there?
Yes, right next to Mort Tractor.
Thank you.
Let me ask legal counsel, is economic condition a consideration on site plan permission or conditional use permission, which is kind of the thrust of the argument that I hear here, but what legal grounds does the council have to consider that as something where the usage is allowed in the area?
So it's a conditional use permit that allows you to kind of deal with it more from an X-Acto knife perspective, where, say, generally we're okay with this type of commercial here, but we want to make sure this is the right lot for it. Competition with other businesses is not a legitimate reason to deny the conditional use. What type of impact it has on the economy of the city of Warrenton or revenue producing is not a single factor that can be used to make a determination in approving or disapproving a conditional use permit. But as it's consistent with the comprehensive plan or the desire to have retail, it can be a factor in denying it if that's something the board would like to consider. So his competition is not a factor for consideration for the board to say there's too many storage units.
But if a person were to take the position as that this area of town, we ideally would like to have retail sales as opposed to something that's non-retail, is that a legitimate position to take?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, that,
Well, I wanted to see what legal
yeah,
opinion was on that.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Brody. Anybody else like to speak just on the site plan 127 for the Warrenton storage units? Not seeing anyone, we'll move on.
Excuse me. So the next public hearing we have is the Warrenton storage units located at 1209 North Service Road. It's a conditional use permit application, CUP 61. This was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission 6-1 with the following conditions of the conditional use permit. Revise the landscape plan with additional perimeter landscaping, no outside storage, asphalt and concrete drive lanes, and black chain link fence. There was quite a discussion about site-proof fencing, which is what staff recommended, and their request to have black chain link fence. For purposes of public hearing, I believe the owner is here, and I'd like the board to make part of the record by reference the public hearing notifications that were published in the Warren County Record for tonight's public hearing and the prior public hearing, copy of the ordinances of the City of Warrenton by reference, and the comprehensive plan of the City of Warrenton.
Be duly noted. There again, anybody wishing to speak just on the conditional use permit 61 for the Warrenton storage units, please come to the podium, state your name, we'll give you 5 minutes to speak.
You're free to speak. Oh, here.
Hello, my name is Terry Barr, 2665 Scenic Point Drive in Washington is my address. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight and the opportunity to hopefully bring our company to Warrenton. As far as the, I'm sorry, what was your name, sir? What was your name again? Sorry. As far as Mr. Brady's comments and the competition, I can understand we are in a couple different towns and it's never feel comfortable seeing competition come in, but at the same time I would say with the new buildings that Mr. Brady has built, that Safe Lock Storage is building, I have seen Jackie O's has been expanding as well. I think that does lead to the conclusion that there is available tenants for these units. The research that we have done have noticed that a lot of these self-storage that we did research on were full, and that's why we sought out this property. I have purchased the property, just to clarify that, and I think it would make a great self-storage facility. We've done one in Union, one in Pacific, and we've seen competition come into both of those in the last 3 years fairly heavily, and our unit numbers are still rising. I think probably the best comparison as far as population size is very similar as far as Pacific, Warrenton Pacific as far as population size. We finished one in 2016 there, and that has over 38,000 square feet, and then a competitor in Pacific as well has come in, and I think they did 27,000 square feet in their first phase, and they have just finished another phase as well. So the industry is growing, is doing fairly well, and that's what we're trying to do, is continue that success that we've had so far. I think the property lends itself very well. It was a vacant property for the past year. Before that, it was a consignment shop, I believe. And as far as the staff's comment on the chain link fence, any storage facility that we have done, we've always tried to do a nicer chain link fence with the black coated 4 of the 7 board members at the last meeting, I believe, were okay with the chain link fence, and one even commented that the safety, or he would like to be able to see into the units as far as if he was storing his possessions there. We've always done that, and just from a drive-by standpoint of us checking on the units and things like that, it is nice to see into the facility. Also, with buying this property, one of the big selling points for me was that it was on 70, so we would like to take advantage of that. We've done some things with the landscaping, which was asked by the Planning and Zoning Committee, as far as adding some additional trees in the front. And I think with the angle, the topography of the entrance into it off of the outer road, really a decent amount of it is hidden from the outer road. I would say close to 50% on the outer road or more. And you know, close to that as far as on Highway 70 as well. Plus they'll be going at a good pace as far as that goes. So, you know, we're trying to present a great plan that's going to look good for the city of Warrenton, that's going to look good for our business and attract customers. And I hope that you'll agree with me. Thank you for your time.
Any questions?
Mr. Barr, have you gone far enough in your research to be able to tell us, will the topography and the shape of the land change? Is there a lot of grade work that'll be done?
So we're actually dropping the site in the northwest corner a few feet. So it'll actually be lowered from what you see right now. So that would actually sink the buildings a little bit lower and actually hide more. We're doing that to allow for good drainage through the facility, and that's so.
So will the old American Legion building be left standing?
Yes, we plan on turning that into climate-controlled storage.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yep.
There again, anyone else who would like to speak solely on the Warrenton storage units of conditional use permit 61, please step forward now, state your name, and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. Not seeing anybody, we'll move on.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. The next project, public hearing that we have for your consideration tonight is the Orange Blossom subdivision. Actually, not the subdivision, but the Orange Blossom Estates zoning change. On August 29, 2018, a request was filed with regards to changing a piece of property to allow R3 high-density residential to be located at 2007 North Highway 47. It is currently zoned Ag and C3 Commercial. The owner of the property, Ed Smeltz, is here, so is his engineer. For purposes of public hearing, I would ask that the notes and minutes from the Warren County Planning and Zoning meeting be made a part of the record by reference. The packet submitted by the applicant be made a part of the record by reference. The comprehensive plan be made a part of the record by reference. And also the notice of publication for the public hearing tonight, the one that occurred in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And like I said, the applicant and his engineer is here tonight to answer any questions either during this portion or the discussion portion.
Be duly noted.
I do have a question on the site plan, and I couldn't tell from the drawings, or, you know, one of the things the city dreams about is the expansion of North Highway 47, and this subdivision sits there. So are the drawings that were submitted sufficient to allow for the expansion and sidewalks in that area when it was presented? That's my question.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. My name is Cameron Lucan with Wunderlich Surveying Engineering. We're the engineering company representing the owner here tonight. And Gary, to answer your question, yes. What we did there was council brought that up to our attention about the sidewalks there. Currently, there are no sidewalks in the area, and currently, I think the sidewalk plan may be on the other side. But in considering all that, the site plan reflect dedicate an easement for that sidewalk if and when it does occur.
In the future.
Yes, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you. If anybody else would like to speak just on the Orange Blossom Estates, I guess it's zoning change -58, please step forward and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak.
Again, I'm Dennis Brady. I own the property that borders their entire west side and their entire north side. And after going to the planning and zoning meeting a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was, I've learned a little bit about what they're proposing to do. I'm not as much an objection as I was. However, I would like to have one condition put in. I believe they're going to put up a security fence along by the fairgrounds, is that correct? And if they would put that all the way up across the west side and the north side, where it would, you know, keep like the grandkids that are coming from and going over on my property. You know, I'm kind of concerned about that. That always opens up a liability. I've got 2 lakes, and they go over there and swim and so forth. But anyway, just I think if it seems like it'd be a small consideration to put in a, you know, a security fence or privacy fence or whatever it is like they're planning by the fairgrounds. If they would put that all along there, 'cause I have fields there and you know and stuff. So. Otherwise, let me say this: if you don't require them to put up a security fence, then I would be an objection to zoning this R3, and I would prefer it be R2. But their proposition and what they showed looked pretty decent to me, and I think I could tolerate what they're doing as long as a fence were to go up. I think that's all I have to
Any
say.
questions or comments?
Does the developer have a comment to make about the request?
I'm not-
You consider?
The only question, I'm not sure I follow where you think the other fence,
I'm sorry.
where would the other fence, I'm not sure I'm following you on where that other fence.
Okay, they're planning on leaving a 20-foot woods, or tree line, I believe. And if they would put this fence on the inside, on their property side, that would be a nice buffer, aesthetically and safety-wise, and
So you're
I mean, it's
suggesting.
not an inconsequential expense, but nevertheless, I mean, another $1 or $2 on the runner, you know.
So you're suggesting a fence on the
North
on the
side.
inside of the wooded areas,
I think that would be better. If they want to put it on the outside, that's fine too.
but the
They'd
residents
have more clearing to have to
might,
do.
might not enjoy the.
There would be a lot
Woods.
more clearing to get the fence along the property line.
I understand, but then you're really limiting the owner, the use of their property when you do that. If you're saying put the fence, as I understand it, south of the wooded area, and I'm not familiar totally with the lay of the land, you're really depriving the seniors that would live there the use of being able to walk and enjoy the view of the woods, I would think.
They wouldn't have any reason.
Wouldn't have what?
Why would they, are you saying they should be allowed to walk onto my field?
Not your
no.
field. Is the wooded area you're talking about on their property or on your property?
On theirs. Well, some of it's on mine, but mostly it's on theirs.
But I'm just saying, if you're suggesting a fence, I don't think.
I see. In other words, you want them to be able to access the woods. Well, that'd be fine. I was just thinking it might be easier, less expensive to put it that size. That wouldn't matter to me, but I would like to have a fence, some kind of security or privacy fence along their west side and their north side. That's what I'd like. And if not, then, like I say, I would object to the R3. Pretty high density.
Well, I think you have to realize, if you're talking security or privacy fence, the costs aren't inconsequential.
Yeah, I said they're not inconsequential.
Right. And so that's a developer issue that he has to look at in terms of his budget and his plan. Now, if you were talking simply about putting a chain link or a barbed wire fence across there so a kid would know, whoever kids come, that there's a property division line, that probably wouldn't be as big of a deal, but the privacy fence would be, I would think, quite expensive. Something to think about.
Any other questions or comments?
We really don't have any R3 zoning anywhere real close to there. A little small area up at Indoor Estates, a few rental apartments there. Most everything else around is all R2.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Reddy. Anybody other questions or comments? Thank you. Anyone else like to speak just on the zoning change 58 for the Orange Blossom Estates?
Yes, I'm Joe Riley. I'm here speaking for Dr. Lee and Mrs. Lee on their property, which is right across the street from the proposal. And our major issues are the two variances that are really trying to be approved right now. One, the major issue is the density, and the second issue is the use, that it is rental property rather than owned property. And the density issue is when you look blanketly at density, typically when you have high density like this is stacked units, not ranch units. There's very little ground left on this whole site. I'm also concerned about the water runoff because there's so much concrete, and all the development has perimeter green space rather than interspersed green space. So basically it's a parking lot with units up against the parking lot. Basically the driveway, small little green space, driveway, small little green space. There's no landscape buffer between the units, and it's a major concern. The other thing is the precedent that it sets for all the adjoining land. Is that going to be a pocket of high density, or does somebody like my client who has 10 times that acreage, are you going to let them put 1,700 rental units on their property? I mean, when you start looking at the numbers of this in this condensed space and parking for potentially 170 cars, and I don't know how many will be coming in and out every day, but it's a major issue at that intersection, and then also for my client's property. And we haven't varied on that. And I think from the standpoint of development from the community, rather than having something that is going to invest in the community and move forward as movement and growth happens out that way, it's really putting in a lower end, lower economic pocket right there when it's prime development for anybody. I don't understand that placement of it. But the major issues are the rental usage and the extreme density of that area.
And I believe I know what piece of property your friend's in. Can you tell me once again, how will that affect your clients? Give me an example of how that's going to affect your clients.
Well, you're going to have potentially 170 cars making left turns, right turns out of that, and their driveway is basically right there, adjacent to the drive, basically right across from the driveway. That's what you're going to have. So it's obviously that's a major part of it. Also, the whole thing is that's a nice pastoral setting there right now. It is not going to be that way. And really, when you're looking at proposed development from that standpoint, I think the city of Warrenton did a very elaborate growth plan, and this was not on the growth plan. This is a complete variance of their long-term goals. And, you know, to do this, when it's been before, it's now happening, I guess, at this point, but the precedent that it sets for anybody else wanting to do a similar project, and you know, it could be an over 55 community with less density that's an ownership situation rather than more rental, in what I consider to be one of the key intersections of Warrenton for future development.
So what is the long-range plan of the city say for that area? I mean, you just told us it doesn't allow the long-range plan on Highway 47 North for this development. Because, will somebody address it? I mean, I got the book here somewhere. It's been a while since I've gone through it. Isn't that a projected use under the long-range plan of the city?
We're gonna pull it up so we can get the language.
And I guess the other comment too is I probably would agree that that's a great pastoral view, or look at the pasture and all that, but we can't deny somebody development of their property just to enhance the view of somebody who lives across the street, because that denies their reasonable use of their land. So there has to be some consideration for development.
I understand that, but the extreme density variance is a major issue for anybody that's near that. And other people have spoken at the other meeting too about it who are joining the property.
So while you're looking up that, what does the density say when it was considered by staff reviewing it? Was there concern over the density issue in the project?
Density questions were raised in the staff review with the applicant. And what they did, and I'll ask you to speak on this if you can. I don't know if he's finished with his public comment, but they did a pretty thorough job of comparing the density of this to the other properties. We actually requested that they leave as much buffer along the outside perimeter of it to make it, because Dr. Brady owns the property, you know, to the north and west, and to really make sure it doesn't, you know, so they did a good job of really trying to preserve as much tree lining coverage along the outskirts of it. So, you know, they've got the density calculations. Planning and zoning was not concerned, and no questions were raised by the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding density as far as it's concerned.
So could you compare the density of this to the density of the senior development that's out by the fairground? I mean, that's kind of what you were describing, something that's a lot of parking lot, a lot
Yeah,
of
why don't you
buildings.
step up?
If you're done, I'll
Yeah,
make
go
the
right
rest
ahead,
of it.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So Gary, what I'll do is I'll attempt to answer your question about the density. Okay, I'm gonna skip forward a little bit to it. As Chris alluded to, when we first came to discuss the proposed use of this, Chris was concerned about the density, so we kind of asked about that to make sure we understood what the city would feel comfortable with. So I prepared this is a site plan of it. What we did is, in regards to the density, the proposed development is 29.25 acres. There's 170 dwellings. The density, that equates to about 5.81 dwellings per acre. Why is that relevant? I guess we asked what had been done in the past. This was the most recent fairground bills at Warrenton that was done. We looked at what that density was. When they came here, I think they had more density, and actually this is the final product. Their final product had 40 dwellings on 5 acres. That equates to about 7.83 dwellings per acre. That's about 35% more dense than what we were proposing.
Okay.
So, kind of put it in chart form. When you look at, when you compare it, if it was R2, that's 8,400 square foot, that's about 5 dwellings per acre, okay? So the R2 use, which was alluded to earlier tonight, is about 8,400 square feet, about 5 dwellings per acre. When you look at R3, potentially, when he talks about a stacked unit, your code actually allows up to 16 units per acre. What we're proposing, our Orange Blossom is about 5.81. The Fairgrounds was about 7.83. So we're actually 2 dwellings per acre. I'm sorry, they are 2 dwellings per acre more dense than what we are.
Okay.
So that kind of talks about the density, and I'm just going forward to the green space here question. This is the Fairgrounds and Villas, 5.81 acres. They got about 19.37 acres of green space. That's about 37% less than what we have. When you look at our calculation on green space, I'm running through this here, I apologize.
No, that's fine.
But basically, when you look at our green space, we have 57% green space compared to their 19.4. which is about 3 times as much green space than what they had. So related to density and related to green space, we felt we were within where we needed to be.
Could you scroll back to the screen several up that showed the basically makeup of the development with the homes or with the buildings on it?
Yes,
I
sir.
think it was one of the
That one,
first 2 or
right.
3 slides.
Yep.
So yeah, it's that one, you flip back away from.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So the concern was the density. So the buildings, as you come in off the Highway 47, those buildings initially there plus the ones behind it. So are those single floor apartments?
Every unit in here is single floor, other than, no, even the office is single floor, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, every structure is a ranch, single floor, single story structure.
So I would assume this is gonna look like the development in some ways behind Walmart to the west, same type of look. Are you familiar with that
I'm
one?
not familiar with
Okay,
that one.
all right. Are the roads that are gonna go in, are those gonna be privately held, or is that something that you're considering turning over?
Yeah, we discussed that with the city, and after a lot of discussion, they're gonna be privately held, so all the streets will be privately maintained and operated and owned by the developer.
Okay.
And I presume that you understand and in your proposal includes the stormwater
Yes, sir.
control.
Yes, sir, we've got a stormwater basin here, retention basin, we also have one up here. And we've developed walking trails around each one of those.
So the lots on the right side, those are, and not your, though it's not highlighted in the white. Those are lots along Highway 47 that you don't own, is that correct?
Correct,
Okay. So those, in theory, could be developed for something else.
correct,
So you're really kind of a little bit off 47.
correct.
And Dr. Brady referred to a tree line, and I realize that's not depicted on your map. Can you show us? what-
Yeah, it's a little hard to see if this is basically as we talk with staff about everything. As Mr. Brady alluded to also, there is basically no existing tree line here between the fairgrounds and the pasture or the open ground. So as indicated, there is going to be a white or a vinyl fence or white vinyl fence installed here. But in talking with the staff and all that, they recommended a 20-foot buffer along the sides to retain those trees. So that's what we
So it's,
discussed.
as opposed to doing a fence, you're saying we're going to leave a tree buffer.
Correct.
Our concern was, as staff, was the clearing you're gonna have to do to put a fence in there, instead of requiring, they originally had a 10-foot buffer, and we said, well, why don't you double it? It's pretty thick, in there, that would be a better use and better green area and preserve a lot more trees on the property, as opposed to bulldozing everything in that buffer area and having a, essentially just a fence there that has no growth around it. So that was our recommendation as far as preferred, as opposed to a fence along that area. And part of our concern as well was for Mr. Brady's property, seeing the back of the units, and we were satisfied that a 20-foot tree buffer will, preserve most of the site proofing between Mr. Brady's property and the back of those units.
Thank you.
One quick,
Yes, sir.
can you go back to the density graph that you had up there?
Yes, sir. Which one were you interested in,
I
Mike?
think it's one, is it one, maybe the one right before, yeah.
The chart maybe, or?
That one there, yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, Fairgrounds villas being the most recent ones, what were some of the older ones? Did they look at any of the older ones around, Mike? Would you know, or did they? Okay, I'm just, okay,
Any other questions or comments?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, Mr. Brady, you can step up.
Can you go back that picture where you show the green?
Yes, sir.
You need it. Dr. Brady, you need
You
to
need to
step
come
to
up
the
to the mic.
microphone so it's on.
Sir, they want you to come to the microphone?
Yeah, okay. You can go back to where you got that, show right there.
Oh, sorry, let me go back.
Right up in here. this is pretty much unusable. That's probably why you're not using it, because there's a ditch or creek that runs down through there, and then on across my property. There's also, so this isn't really gonna be anything much usable to the occupants, or the residents here that live here. Because they'd have to cross this ditch, which is about 6 or 8 feet deep. And there's also an abandoned boat, an abandoned truck up there, and I'm not sure what else. It's been a number of years since I've seen it in there. So just to let you know that it's not as rosy as it seems, with the 4.6 acres or whatever it was, green space.
All right, would anybody else like to speak on the Orange Blossom Estates zoning change 58?
I would like to.
Come forward, please, state your name. And
My name is
speak.
Melissa Lee.
If you would, at the microphone, please.
Thank you. I am the owner of one across the street.
If you could state your name one more time.
Melissa Lee,
Thank you.
and we own the property across the street. And Mr. Riley came up here and spoke earlier. When I got the notification, first of all, I didn't get the notification, and then I finally got the notification that there was going to be a meeting about this project. I wanted to be open-minded, so I decided I would go to Union, Missouri to see what the project looked like that was proposed to come into town here. We are out here because we love the area. Actually, I knew the owners, the Slatons, very well that own the property that they're deceased behind, or across the street from us, where this is proposed to go. When I went out there, I was mortified because green space, we're out here, this is semi-country, and this is like green space, you expect green space to be. I took pictures of the development, and I don't see, from a density point of view, this is one of the developments that he developed in Union, Missouri, Independence Valley, or whatever the name is. It's just row after row and concrete. Here's some more. Here's the nicer one with the 2-car garage and the 2-bedroom units. But when you pull up there, it's just streets of concrete and slabs. So obviously if there's a tornado or anything went through, nobody would have a basement to go to for safety reasons. There's slabs, and they all just, you're looking at concrete. In the very back corner, there's a pond, a detention pond. There's a little, on the website, when you go there, there is a very pretty little lake, but it's for the water, with a fountain in it and a little cooking area for people to go and cook on. But the overall, when you drive in there, all you see is rows of buildings like this and concrete. And I don't see how you're gonna see anything green with 170 units there like this. I don't see what this, I'm all for the property to be developed, maybe single family, kids, something like that. But this, 55 or older, they're not going to bring anything to this town. They're not going to bring any revenue to this town. This is a growing town and city. 55 and older, they're kind of like ready to chill out and not do a whole lot and shop or do anything. They kind of, at the end of their going out and doing anything, shopping, experience anything. Sorry, I mean, I'm 55 or older too, so I'm just saying it's kind of, people don't just, I mean, it's a thriving, it's becoming a thriving area. Snooks just came out here. It's a great town, and I hate to see this become a property development that stagnates. Why doesn't somebody put villas in there, like attached villas, and they can have a family and kids, and you can.
Do you want to raise your kids on Highway 47? I'm just kind of curious.
Would I mind? I would not mind raising my kids on Highway 47. I wouldn't have invested in the property if I would have mind raising my kids. I have 3 children.
I assume they're grown. So let me ask you a question. So those pictures you have.
I drove out to Independence Valley because
Yeah.
that's.
Do they have green space between the behind
You can
the
see,
two buildings? So, but
there's a
it
little
does-
strip like this between, there's a small strip between the two, very small.
But this one appears to be different because what's between the buildings is a bigger green strip.
But that's all you got is like right here. That, like he said, that property over there isn't any green strip.
Yeah, I'm not, we're not talking about that.
There's a green strip between the two backs, the backs of those buildings.
That's what I'm asking. So
Just
you think they're
the back.
comparable or no?
I don't think so. I mean, there's not 170 units there. This is overpowering 170 units. And with the amount of concrete there, with fewer units, I cannot even imagine what it's going to look like here.
Well, you're not gonna see most of it because there's property between U and there's Highway 47 to begin with.
It doesn't matter. The development, I don't see why you think the development's good for the town.
Well, I don't, at age 70, I don't happen to think that people over 55 that live here aren't going to bring something to our community. And I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't have the ability nor the will to discriminate
Nobody says
against
you're gonna
people
discriminate.
because they're worthless, and you're
I'm not,
worthless.
I didn't say they were
If they're
worthless.
over 55. So I really don't have a whole lot of interest in discussing that aspect of it, and I really don't care to see these because they have nothing to do with what is being
That
proposed
the
here.
same developer developed that, so it's gonna look like that.
You don't know what it's gonna look like. We've got a proposal in front of us, it's not that.
I'll take it real quick, please. Thank you.
But the end product is there, you can take a look.
We're wanting to downsize, and that'd be the kind of
Yeah.
thing that I, would think would be attractive. but Don't have to worry about it.
How many units were in this, do you know?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on the zoning change for Orange Blossom Estates? Please come forward. If you would, just come to the podium, state your name.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Ed Schmeltz. I'm the owner, developer of Orange Blossom Estates. Would just like to answer a few questions that have been brought up tonight. Just to first talk about Mr. Brady's point with the fence on the north and west side. I mean, I can appreciate his sentiment as far as not wanting kids to get in his lake. I understand it's a liability issue. You know, for us, that's a very large cost. We feel like a 20-foot tree buffer is very sufficient. We do get grandkids visiting our seniors. That's an absolute fact. We're not going to tell them they can't have their grandkids come visit them. That's ridiculous. We do require in our leases that no children are ever left unsupervised. By their grandparent has to be outside with them if they're outside. Does it happen occasionally? Yes, we do give, and we will give the person a violation if we catch them or if somebody reports them. So we do, once again, it's a measure we have in place. Is it foolproof? No, but we do have that measure in place. So we feel like that kind of helps that there. To answer the previous woman's discussion here, or questions here, yes, they are all on slabs. This is, and that's done 100% intentionally. This is a 55 and up community. When these people, when they move into these places, we don't want them to have to go over one step. Not 1 6-inch step, they don't have to go over. So that's the whole goal, is to have, easy access for everyone. So the slabs are done 100% intentionally. For those of you who did look at those photos of the first picture where the buildings were all step and there was no porches on them, that was the first phase I did 5 years ago in Union. Is it plain Jane looking? Absolutely, 100%. Not one of those buildings will be in this development. When I first started this project in Union, I figured it would be about 75% units, no garages, 25% with garages. We got going on it, turned out to be 100% opposite. Everybody wanted garages, so we flip-flopped. So in this project, it's 75% of the units have a garage on them. The units that do not have a garage on them, every one of them now has a 6-foot porch on the front of it that extends the whole width of the front of the building. So for the one building that does look, I'm going to be honest, it does. It looks plain Jane, it looks boring. There will not be one of those in this. The picture that she said actually looks good, that will be 75% of the units. As far as being a massive concrete, I don't do asphalt. I think concrete is better, holds up longer. So that project is more dense than this project, the one I did there. These do have at least 5 feet more in between buildings than that project does. We did space these out a little bit more. And to answer some other arguments about green space, yeah, we could go in here and separate every building by 10 feet approximately keep the same amount of units and still have the same amount of green space. But for what we've found, 10 feet in between buildings doesn't really matter. They love the lakes. They love, I see people every morning walking their dogs around our lakes, the waterfalls, with the fountains. They'd rather have a larger green space with pavilions. They can go barbecue and enjoy a day, as opposed to having 10 more feet in between their buildings. Mr. Costello, thank you for answering the 55 and olders, bring nothing to the community. I appreciate that. I don't need to say anything more about that. I think that's all I have.
Any questions?
It's good. Thank you for
Thank you
clearing
all.
up some of those things. That's-
Appreciate it.
Makes sense.
Anyone else would like to speak on the zoning change 58 for Orange Blossom Estates?
Yeah. I'd like to say again, the school board has expressed some interest in purchasing property around my place and the property just north there. And with, 55 plus residents and no single family, then, it's not gonna be anybody walking to school. Whereas somebody, if,
I don't
we
know
have
why
single
people
family-
think that the city can sit here and dictate the need that is in our community already. We have contractors and developers building homes for families as we speak. There's a great deal of that being done and going on in the southern part of the city. I believe this developer is responding to a need for senior housing. And I happen to be aware and talking to the realtors and to a lot of the seniors who I think do add something to our community. They don't add crime, they do shop, they spend their money here, they don't drive at night, they typically don't drive in bad weather, and they don't drive erratically, at least intentionally. But this logic that we can dictate to a developer what the needs are. These folks are probably building this out of the knowledge that Warrenton, Missouri needs a great deal more in the way of senior housing. We've got waiting lists, and as far as it being rental property, the seniors I know, less is more. They don't want to own a house. They don't want to clean the gutters. They don't want to mow the lawn. But seniors bring a great deal of stability to any community, including Warrenton. So if you happen to sell your property to the school district and they build a school out there and there is a demand for single family homes, R2, R3, and people need those homes to house their families, someone will come along and they'll build those. It's supply and demand. But we don't have the ability nor the will to dictate what is going to work or what is needed at the time.
You said there's a need. Has there been a study if there's been a study for the need for 55 plus
Have you talked to any
residents?
of the realtors in town? Have you talked to seniors who have tried to get into the current senior housing that's here? I have. And there have been waiting lists, 20 and 30 people, and they have to literally wait for somebody to die before they get into a property. So,
And I would like, if I could add, Alderman Costello mentioned, the couple contractors building single-family residences, and the last time I talked to them, they're actually building as fast as they can. They want to expand. One guy, I think, wants to add another crew to build more houses. His houses are actually being sold before they are completed.
Yeah.
So that's, the other the other side of the coin
And so
too,
it
that
seems like they
there
could
is-
move,
there
put in
is that
R2,
going on,
single
too.
family on this property.
I'm sorry, say again?
It seems like it could go R2 and put in single family on this property then with as much need, and I agree with you. There's been a tremendous amount of growth in the last year or two. But,
I can tell you, being a senior, needs to be way more senior housing available in this community. And I think they would fill up immediately.
Any other questions or comments?
way more senior,
Thank you,
less
Mr. Brady.
Brady.
Anybody else like to speak on the zoning condition 58 for Orange Blossom Estates? Not seeing anybody, we'll move on to the planned unit development 59 for Orange Blossom Estates.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. This may be the last time I speak tonight, although I doubt it. This is the public hearing for the conditional use permit for the planned unit development request. This was approved by the Warrenton Planning and Zoning Commission, 7-0 with 3 absent. Essentially, you have discussed the project and what the project is. This is a planned unit development, which does allow for some variations from the strict letter of the code for, you know, essentially slightly higher density developments under one common ownership with common green space areas. And there are green space areas that are located in this property to address that concern, including a dog park and some walking trails and a couple of ponds. That's consistent with what the applicant says their residents in their union facility, the ones they really like. For purposes of this public hearing, I would ask that the ordinance of the City of Warrenton may be made a part of the record by reference. The comprehensive plan be made a part of the record by reference. The Warren County or City of Warrenton Planning and Zoning packet be made a part of the record by reference. The minutes from that meeting. And also the public hearing notifications in the newspaper for this project. They did approve this 7-0, and there were certain conditions that were put on the project that I want to go over briefly. Greystone Chapel Drive, there was a concern about, they want to do it in phases, so essentially this is phase 1, and that's phase 2. So there was concern that this loop be how someone could basically access it for safety purposes. So there was a condition that was made and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission that said Greystone Chapel Drive, which would create that loop, must be completed within 18 months of the first building permit application received by the city. Until that's completed, temporary turnarounds must be constructed, essentially to the city's public works director's satisfaction. There is an easement. I did speak with Mr. Brady's son about access to this for potential future development, residential development in his property. So here they've added a easement, a roadway easement. If at some point there's an access that is desired to be put in to create an auxiliary access to Mr. Brady's property so that there's 2 entrances and exits, which is what the fire department wants to see now, is 2 ways to get in there. So if one's blocked, they can get in a separate way. So that was added, and I did discuss that with Mr. Brady and his son. There's also an auxiliary gated entrance here this is the Warren County Fairgrounds property. This was at the request of the fire department that there be a gated locked entrance here, and I guess it's a temporary road, and I assume they met with you, Paul, and worked it out. So they have met with the Warren County Fair Board to work out details of this easement, and then they will put a gated entrance here that I assume law enforcement and fire department will have access to if there's an emergency and access is blocked on Highway 27. We did meet with them on repeated occasions with regards to this project and did express our concerns about density, and they did, provide that information to you guys earlier.
Any questions for Mr. Graville before he sits down? Anybody who'd like to speak on the planned unit developer, PUD 59 for Orange Blossom Estates, please come to the podium, speak your name, and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. See if Timmy speaks. Not seeing anyone? Oh, go ahead, come on.
No, I was just going to address the concerns you guys had, so if you have any questions.
I don't believe we do. Thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and bring the public hearing section of the Warrenton Board of Alderman meeting for Tuesday, November 20th, 2018 to a close. Do you need that with us? I know, folks, you've hung in there for us for a minute. I'm going to give everybody about a 2-minute break. I didn't know it was going to go an hour for the public meeting. Take a 2-minute break, and we'll be right back for the regular Board of Alderman meeting. For once. Finally got to use the gavel. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and open the Warrenton Board of Alderman meeting and the regular session for Tuesday, November 20th, 2018. Please rise with us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item will be the consent agenda.
We have the regular and executive session meeting minutes from November 6, 2018.
Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Alt. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey.
Yes.
Alderman Costello.
Yes.
Alderman Ock.
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Next, I'd like to do a recognition of the Warrenton High School or senior high school, I guess, or what do they consider it nowadays? I guess it's just high school. Trap shooting team. Guys, all come forward, please, because you guys did a wonderful job.
Fill in tighter. You're
Squeeze
gonna have to have a couple rows there.
Get cozy.
Get a hand. So a couple things before I read the recognition. I just want everybody to know that, number one, this is my first time working with the FFA organization. I'll tell you what, very impressive. Very courteous, utmost in politeness whenever I've had dealings with them. So I want to recognize that before we even do the trap shoot. The organization itself here in Warrenton, we get bragged on a lot about our FFA organization. And it says a lot, especially with local communities and neighboring communities, for lack of better terms, jealous of the program we have at our high school. So I'll say that first. But secondly, took second, and I guess it's I knew I had to break it down. Northeast District's trap shoot. Is that correct? That's correct. With a 467 out of 500, which is pretty impressive.
Wow.
And as you can see, it's, and I don't mean this offensively, but years in the past, it's always been mostly a guy's sport. And we have some fine lovely ladies who are sporting, and I think they're giving all the guys a run for their money too, from what I'm hearing. So, on this behalf of the city, we'd like to a recognition of achievement for the Warrenton High School FFA trap team for winning second place at the FFA Northeast District's trap shoot with a team score of 467 out of 500. Presented by the City of Warrenton Mayor and the Board of Aldermen on this 20th day of November 18, 2018. Twofold to this, guys. Number one, we've been asking as a board, please send us people that we can recognize. We do it every meeting that we could. But secondly, as we've stated in the paper before, we've had problems with youth. We want to show that not all youth do bad things. There's some guys that youth that do great things. We want to recognize them as much as we can. We want them to feel ownership in our city and be a part of our city. So guys, thank you for bringing that representation to us.
I think paper wants to do a picture real fast.
Oh, Adam.
If I could have the people in the back row step like one space to the right. Go, sir. Yep. And yeah, I'm gonna, people in the front row, if you can make sure that your companions behind you have like a window to see me. I think you're good.
Yeah. You got to get her in there.
All right, and see you. That's good. Yeah. And yeah, see you. All right, cool. I'm gonna give you a 3 count, all right? All right. 3, 2, 1. Excellent.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Great chief job.
Good job.
Oh, yeah.
Keep it up. Some seats.
It's good, because what I learned about this is don't mess with the girls shooting.
Yeah. Wouldn't be wise.
Gene's gonna go. I would say Gene wasn't gonna leave before me. He has to stay. He has to leave.
Your phone? Could be. I didn't choo-choo train. Oh, no, I didn't. Hurry up, Gene, get up there. Get up there.
So, on to the next item, which I'm pretty proud of her personally. Even though she likes to keep us all riled up and keep us in line, we like to give her as much pushback as she gives us. So, she's Melody Roof. She has really worked hard for our city and continues to always work hard for our city. And really, honestly, I think Terry really should be up here too, because I know you don't want to, but she really does help out a lot with the day-to-day operations of the city, and she does definitely keep me in line and make sure that I do my job well. We'll just say that with a smile. We're presenting her with a proclamation. She really worked hard, and I'll let her kind of tell you, even though she won't want to speak about it, how she did a Thank you. That's why I let her speak. But as well, what I do want to recognize is she's got a great support group here that is, which you guys can all come up here in just a moment when you do your presentation, with other city clerks. I appreciate that. So this is proclamation for you, Melody. I'd read it, but we'd be up here another 5 minutes. You've already seen it, you know what it is. So thank you. If you don't know Melody, she's a very humble person, but she does tell you how it is. And it's always nice to work with that. And I know we're laughing, but it is nice to work with that. Somebody who doesn't skirt around things, but just tells you what's needed to be done and gets it done. It really puts a lot of chase out for us, and that's why we do appreciate her so much.
Thank you.
Now I'll let you come.
Good evening, Mayor Schluter and Warrenton Board of Aldermen. My name is Tanya Hawkins. I'm the Deputy Clerk for the City of Troy. I'm also the Public Relations Chair for the Missouri Eastern Division of City Clerks. And I have with me tonight O'Fallon City Clerk Pam Clement, Troy City Clerk Jody Schneider, and Truesdale City Clerk Mary Lou Rainwater. And we're here to recognize your City Clerk, Melody Rue, for attaining her MRCC continuing. I know that's a lot. This certification is a combination of education and experience, and Melody really is to be commended for achieving this goal. The Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association has about 500 members and is dedicated to educating clerks across the state of Missouri. With ever-changing state statutes and regulations on municipalities, it's important that clerks are kept current on those changes and regulations. And the Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association is dedicated to making sure that the education they provide is relevant to clerks. Additionally, you as elected officials are to be commended for your support of Melody. Your support for her going to classes and to conferences shows that you understand the education is relevant not only to you and her coworkers, but also, most importantly, to the citizens of Troy or Warrenton. So now, Melody, we'd like to present you with this certificate. On behalf of your friends in Eastern Division, we'd like to congratulate you, and we wish you the best in your career as Warrenton City Clerk.
All right.
Leave the room.
Count from here, right? 3, 2, 1. Pretty good, thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. A lot of hard work here.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I also appreciate the support you give her.
Hey, ma'am.
I know your daughter.
I'm getting ready to ask you this.
She was telling me.
Yeah.
I love her.
Some more seats. Next item on the agenda would be hearing from the public. We ask that if you'd like to speak, you come forward to the podium, state your name. We'll give you 5 minutes to speak, and then you can state your business. Not seeing anyone, we'll move on. Next will be Board of Alderman comments.
Mayor, just quickly, I know we got a long meeting tonight, a long ways to go. I just want to report that I did attend the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors meeting. They had a lot of questions and excitement over the grand openings that we had and ribbon cuttings. But what I bring back to our board is that the License Bureau is profitable under their new management. They don't have a good income from that. They intend after the first of the year to have a board work session to determine how to move forward. That money is being kept separate from the dues and the regular operation of the chamber. So I'll report back to you after that decision is made.
Anyone else?
I would just like to give a tip of the hat to Certainteed as a good corporate neighbor. I know Alderman Costello was there today, but we worked on the No Hunger Holiday, which providing a Thanksgiving dinner, a full dinner, turkey and all the fixings, for 554 families. And Certainteed sent I don't know, there must have been a couple dozen employees down to help do that. And the company paid them for their time that they put in here. They helped pack it all up, and then I think they even went out to the church to help distribute them. So a tip of the hat to a good corporate neighbor, Certainteed. So
I agree.
Thank you for reporting that. Sometimes those things go unseen and unreported. Anyone else? All right. Move on to the mayor's comments. Once again, I'm just going to go ahead and state it. I know I stated it during the recognition of the Warrenton High School trap team. Folks, we're always looking for someone to try and recognize in our town, and I believe, and it's no offense to any alderman, I just don't think a lot of things get reported to them, but I believe in my tenure here, Alderman Auk recognized one gentleman for the cutting the grass and with his own lawnmower, not of his own time. And those are the things we're looking for. We're looking for anybody we can recognize in our town to say thank you for doing things and making Warrenton a better place. So once again, word of mouth travels fast. So while we still have a lot of people here, please pass that along. Let's look for people. We'd like to recognize them, make them feel good about our town, and we want to show them that we appreciate everything they do. So next, we'll go to the presentation of the audit results from, I'm sorry, is it Alan Schulte, Bolts and Deal, is that correct?
Bots and Deal.
Bots and Deal, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. I just want to start off by saying how much we enjoy coming here and doing the audit. The staff is great. They're always very helpful. Everything's always in really great shape, so it makes our job much easier every year. And I'll try to get through this kind of quick. Slow me down if you have any questions. We issued an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements, which means everything's fairly stated in accordance with GAAP. We didn't have any material audit adjustments. A couple things I'll point out in the financial statements, page 5. Oh, I wanted to mention, we brought some hard copies if you guys want a paper copy of the financial statements. They're available. I know you guys got electronic versions in advance. On page 5, at the bottom of that page, there's a table that compares prior year to current year. This is a government-wide presentation, so this is everything kind of rolled up into a single column, includes long-term assets and liabilities like fixed assets and debt. You guys had a few significant variances this year. Capital assets, you guys are in the process of building the aquatic center, so that's going to increase your capital assets there. You borrowed some money to do that. You also borrowed some money to do the interchange on the west end of town. And then you can see the second to last line there, the negative unrestricted net position. So what happens there is, since the interchange is not going to be an asset of the city, but you borrowed money to do it, it kind of hits that unrestricted net position there, and then as you pay the debt, then that will increase. So it's kind of an unusual situation where you guys don't own the asset. Because of that, it hits on the expense side. If you go to page 7, under expenses, you can see the street department had a pretty significant $8.2 million increase there. So that's what you guys had spent so far on the construction of the interchange. The other categories had decreases, and that related to the pension that you guys put into place last year. So there was a significant expense last year for putting that into place, providing benefits for previous service credits. Revenue-wise, on the top there, taxes increased about $1 million. About $900,000 of that was sales tax, and then a big chunk of that was the new economic development and capital improvement sales tax. There was a one-time grant last year of about $500,000, which is why capital grants and contributions decreased from last year. On page 8 is water and sewer comparison. Nothing really unusual there. There was about an 8% increase in water and sewer revenue. You guys had a 4% increase in rates, so the difference was an increase in usage, mostly industrial last year. Expense-wise, there was about a $70,000 decrease in expenses. Most of that would be attributable to the pension costs in the prior year as well. The water and sewer fund paid down about $675,000 in debt last year, so you guys are making really nice dents in that every year. Any questions about any of that? On page 18 is the fund financial statements. So that's kind of what you're used to seeing on a monthly basis, the different funds. The general fund had an increase of just under $400,000 for the year. The net fund balance is about $3.5 million, which covers about 260 days of expenses. So, you got about, 3/4 of a year covered there. But, you guys get revenue on a monthly basis through sales tax. So I mean, that's a pretty solid cushion there. Capital Improvements Fund has about $2.5 million in fund balance, and that's mostly just unspent proceeds from the aquatic center. So borrowed the money this year, but haven't finished construction as of the end of June. The interchange fund, that's going to track a couple things. That tracks the money you brought in from the borrowings from the state of Missouri, and then you'll collect taxes in there to make the debt service payments in the future. And then as far as the pension, I mentioned earlier, if you go to page 48, there's a table there that will eventually have 10 years worth of information in it. and it'll kind of give you a little bit of a comparison of where you stand as far as the projected liability versus the amount of assets set aside for that. So in the top half there, you can see the estimated liability is about $1.8 million. You guys have about $480,000 set aside. The net difference is about $1.5 million. So your plan is 26% funded there. And, that's intentional since you guys are new. They're not going to make you write the big check up front. They'll take a little bit over time and get you guys fully funded at some point in the future. The goal there is to be at 80-90% when you guys have made up that difference. And Loggers does a really good job. Most Logger plans that we see are at that level, or maybe even 100%. So they're usually pretty good at being able to weather the downturns and things like that that happen in the market. Any questions about any of that? All right. Management report-wise, all that really says is, the financial statements are responsibility of management. We're just issuing an opinion on them. Each year we try to incorporate some unpredictability into our procedures so that, the staff don't always know what we're going to do. This year we looked at the bidding process and had a couple little recommendations as far as making things a little tighter. In no way did we see any flaws or deficiencies in that process. Just maybe a little better documentation in the actual bid file. We could tell that the processes were in place, maybe just not written documentation in the file. So that's all we really had there. There's a few graphs in the back of the management report. The first one is general fund revenues, so it gives you a little more detail than what the financial statement has in a multi-year comparison. So you can kind of see the different taxes aren't broken out separately in the financial statement. You can see things have been pretty consistent year over year, and this is just general fund. On the second graph is expenses. And again, there you can see everything's pretty consistent year over year. You don't see the big variations in the departmental expenses because the pension contributions in this information is based on what you paid, not the full accrual estimate of the future costs. And then the last one has to do with water and sewer. Again, you can see kind of the consistent increase in revenues over the last couple years. Expenses have been holding pretty steady over that period. Any questions? I know that was kind of fast.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. We do a lot, but you don't really think about the impact. But when you see that the city's debt service more than doubled from 14 million to $30 million, it tells you that you're doing big projects. Between the sewer and the interchange, that's just the cost of doing of a growing community. So when I first looked at the increase in debt, I thought, holy mackerel. But when you think about what that gave you, it makes a lot of sense. That was my big take from reading through the financial reports. And my other comment is, if you read through the notes in terms of the interest rates, those are, in my opinion, those are great rates. I wish I had those rates, on that debt, because we're paying very small interest rates on most of the debt, and the only thing that's a little higher are stuff that's pretty minor. I think there's about $1.3 million, and some of those that could go up to 5.7, but everything else is next to nothing. So, to me, that's the big story of the year.
Any comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item will be the Warrenton Downtown Association Hometown Christmas Street closure. I believe we have a couple people here. Hi.
Kelly.
Hi. My name is Kelly Schmiel. I'm here for the Warrenton Downtown Association. For the Hometown Christmas, we're just doing with the, getting the streets closed and marking off for all the festivities that are going to happen that night.
What's the date of that, Kelly?
December 1st, from 5:30 to 8. What?
4:30 to 9.
4:30 to 9?
I think that's what the petition said.
No, I think
I think the
5:30 to 8.
But the street closing
Streets.
started.
Oh,
with
yes,
street
the
closing.
street's closing at
4:30.
4:30, yes, yes. So,
And what's the, from what street to what street?
the streets are,
Thurman, Hudson, Dryden, Northeast Street, Southeast Street,
Market and Hudson.
That's on the application.
Do you have any questions for Mr.
No, thank you, Kelly.
Nope. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the street closure from the Warrenton Downtown Association on December 1st, 2018, from 4:30 to 9 p.m. for Hometown Christmas.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Costello. Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. 6-0. I'm sorry, 6-0, I'm sorry. Can't count tonight. We'll get there.
You voting now?
What's that?
You're voting now.
I don't ever want to vote if I can. So next we'll hear from our city administrator, Terry Thorne.
My first item for you tonight is to request approval for the engineering for the downtown sidewalk project. We sent out for, did a request for qualifications and received those back, and staff reviewed them. Their recommended choice is BFA Engineering, that we have some experience with before. For this project, they have submitted a proposal which will include all of the engineering and topographical work, as well as assistance with bidding the actual project out. Their not to exceed amount for this agreement is $26,875.
Any questions on the project? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the downtown sidewalk project proposal from BFA in the amount of $26,875.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Delloy, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
So I do have a question on the one of the sentences in the letter. It says the ultimate goal for the city to be able to bid this project in the spring of 2019. So is that looking more like a realistic date? What are we bidding at that time? The actual construction of the
Yes.
project?
Yes.
So the only thing that would hold that up, weather of course, but would be the right of ways, right? So that,
Well, there's really no, depending upon what happens there, I don't anticipate the need for additional right-of-way,
okay.
because the city already is maintaining the sidewalks. We already have access to the street right-of-ways.
Okay.
So I don't really see this being a project where easements or right-of-ways become an
They're
issue
all-
like some
everything's taken
others.
care of, because it's existing easement right away.
Right, that's what I believe. Now, we may run into something somewhere that we didn't know about. So even as late as today, they confirmed that their schedule would be such that we would see preliminary plans shortly after the first of the new year, with plans ready for construction and to go out to bid in the spring to start construction. So
Did they give you a gut feeling of how long construction could take, realizing weather impacts?
I honestly did not ask the question. Did you ask the question? No.
Okay.
I mean, the reality is, unless, because of the location, it's all hard surface area there, so unless it would be a snow that would cover everything up, I don't know that weather is going, other than maybe prohibitive because it's too cold to pour concrete or something. So I'm hoping we don't have a lot of weather involvement there.
I mean, I think if you think of the project in terms of the next downtown festival, it would be reasonable to think if they started in the spring, they should have
Oh,
the
yes,
project
it should be
in way
completed
before the
well
festival.
before that, yes, absolutely. My next item for you this evening is to request approval for reimbursement to the Walnut Hollow Homeowners Association for the streetlights out there. I received a call from George Keith last week, and his question was really about the process for the city taking over streetlights in subdivisions when they're turned over. And so that conversation resulted in staff doing some investigative work, only to discover that back in January of 2017, when the city accepted all of the infrastructure in Walnut Hollow, which included the streetlights, we failed to notify Ameren to change the billing for the streetlights over to the city, as opposed to the Walnut Hollow Homeowners Association. So I asked them for information on their bills back to that period that should have been covered by the city. The total of that would be $1,409.35, which I'm asking approval to reimburse that homeowners association for the streetlights that they have paid the Ameren bills on since the city actually took over and have owned those streetlights.
Any questions on that?
What took them so long?
I can't believe nobody has ever said, wait a minute, why are we not, and ask us, you know, why aren't you getting the bill? But it's the first we'd heard, and so we had to backtrack and try to figure it out. And lo and behold, the request, as best we can tell, the request was never made.
Motion to approve the request.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Schultz to reimburse the Walnut Hollow Homeowners Association in the amount of $1,409.35. Roll call vote.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
A couple of other things, informational. The parking, the 24-hour parking signs, if you didn't notice when you came to City Hall, went up today. We also sent out letters to all of the downtown business owners and property owners, as well as staff, as best we knew, provided a copy of that letter to all the residential addresses so that people who are actually living in the downtown area are aware that this is happening. So our police department will soon start taking enforcement actions there. Part of what the letter did was to notify folks who actually have an address and live there. If they do get ticketed, they need to bring that ticket to City Hall and go through the process. We have stickers that will go in their back window to identify those vehicles as residential vehicles in the downtown area. So that process has now started. If you should get a call from someone who lives down there, please direct them to City Hall so we can get them taken care of and get them the stickers so that they don't continue to have that situation. But I know it's taken us a while to get this put together, but we wanted to make sure that when we did it right. So signs are up, letters have gone out. We are now up and running with the 24-hour parking downtown. Questions?
Any questions?
And certainly, not last but not least, Brandy and I met with Superintendent Smith last week with the school. It was a very good meeting, good exchange of information for us, and I think it's something we should continue to do as we were able to share that. We learned some valuable information, not the least of which is that they have a system where information can be pushed out to all of their lists of email addresses for students if we need to reach them for some reason. We are going to be putting some information on aquatic center happenings that are kind of driven to days that school are out and those kinds of things. So it was a very interesting and I think worthwhile meeting that we had. There are notes for you at your desk tonight, kind of summary of that information. That's all I have.
Excellent. Any questions? Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Director of Operations, Brandy Walters.
Good evening. The first thing that I have is the renewal for the property and liability insurance tonight. We have an increase this year of $12,132, and that's usually additional for the park.
Mayor Guy asked to leave the dais while that is being discussed and voted on, because I have a conflict of interest.
You can, I mean, you can stay, but it's your choice.
It's all right.
As I said, that increase is due to the addition of the new park. And since this invoice, our staff has sat down and gone over all of our water towers and different buildings and all the equipment, updated everything on the insurance list. So there is a possibility that we could see an additional invoice or even a credit after we've gone over all of those things later in the future. So our total premium this year is $192,009. And Julie from Tri-County is here if you have any questions.
Any questions? No, you're off the hook.
Well, not quite, because I want to get this to Brandy and you all as recognition. This is on behalf of Missouri Rural Services. What they do is they do give a Hall of Fame award out, and you guys actually got a Hall of Fame award. It's for the period of April of 2014 through March of 2017, and they recognize it in the next year, and they give it out to people that have less than 35% loss ratio. And this, it's, you get these little awards and it's one thing, but what this does represent is that you guys are working hard to make sure that you have safety for your employees. When your employees are safe, then you're more productive. This also gives you a decrease in your premiums for your work comp. I know we're not talking about work comp tonight, but it does give you a decrease because you have a lower experience modification. And so and the other thing is when they're paying less claims out on people, the carrier doesn't have to take rate increases as well. So on behalf of Missouri Rural Services, I wanted to present this to you, Brandy.
Thank you.
I have one question, Mayor.
Sure.
How often do you go over the values of property and upgrade the numbers on that?
I would say we really touch them each and every year. This year we took a harder look and had other people come in, like the guy was in, and we just went and looked at like the water towers, because sometimes with the water towers and the pumps and stuff, we just wanted to get all of our language on the same page. So we really actually touch that each and every year.
In the vehicles?
Every year, yes.
Good.
Yeah. In fact, because we also had policy that we had written, I would like to say probably 2 years ago or so, where we would say, hey, if the amount was under a certain amount, then we would do only liability on it, and especially on a certain age of a vehicle.
So, I mean, is there a deductible amount on property that we have in the policy? So occurrences under a certain amount, city covers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that is off the top of your head?
I believe that we increased it to 5,000.
Is that something we should look at, maybe increasing it to a higher number? That's something to think about.
Sure.
I mean, because I know my organization, we have very low experiences, kind of like the city does, and moving that deductible number up makes a difference, and it really hasn't cost us on a cash flow basis any more money. So it's something they want to look at.
Sure.
Moving forward.
And the last thing I'd like to point out that is, even though you did have an increase in premium, your rates actually decreased this year because each year we detail per building per location. And so we could see a decrease. So, hope that helps.
With the growing that we're doing, you can expect increases because of the number of items we insure.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the property and liability insurance renewal in the amount of $192,009.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Ock. Roll call vote.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
And Alderman Costello abstained.
Motion passes 5-0 with one abstaining. Somebody could please ask him to come back in.
Okay, the next thing that I have for you tonight is a boundary adjustment at Meadows of Walnut Hollow, and that's SUBD 67. They're wanting to move those lot lines on 2 lots to accommodate an area for cluster mailboxes and parking. Both lots will still meet all code requirements. P&Z approved this with 6-0 with 1 abstention and 3 absent at the November 1st meeting, and without any conditions. There is Bill 5918 that'll be later on the agenda for approval, and Brandon is here if you have any questions.
Any questions on that?
The next thing is Lot 32 Arlington Way for Site Plan 126. This lot is to be approved for a triplex. P&Z approved this plan with the condition of removing the lot lines by a 6-0 vote with 1 abstention and 3 absent at the November 1st meeting. They had a condition on there that they recommended to proceed with removing the lot lines. And after speaking with the applicant's engineer, they would like to proceed without removing the lines. And there's a bill also 6018 that will be later on the agenda for approval. And Brandon's also here for that one.
A lot of emails on this. So are we doing what's proposed here? It's consistent with how we've treated other similar properties in terms of lot lines and everything else? Because these are kind of unusual situations that don't come up very often.
So I can maybe give a little background to cover it, to kind of explain what happened in the situation. So we were actually reviewing as staff this proposed development, and we were talking about the triplex, and really the concern, one of staff concerns with planning and zoning was parking. Is there sufficient parking to keep the parking off the street? They addressed that at planning and zoning, but the other concern was this is a conditional use permit application for a triplex. The lot lines indicate that they want to do the lot split to sub-standard lot sizes. We do have that exception under our code. I talked to Brandon a little bit before this meeting. It's the way, and this is what I also told Bart before the planning and zoning meeting, Mr. Foreman from Lewis and Beatty. Our process is you have to have a valid conditional use permit. And once you have a valid conditional use permit, you can come on certain properties, which I think this property was obviously intended to be included in those properties, although we probably have to slightly modify our ordinance to make it inclusive but not include a bunch of other properties, because there are triplexes and duplexes in this neighborhood. It's an orphan lot, it's a lot that's never been developed. It makes sense, however, I don't believe the ordinance allows that. They don't have a valid conditional use permit. Their conditional use permit they've had conditional use permits in the past that have expired. And so it says, any conditional use permit prior to the adoption of this ordinance. Even if this did have, it's a 2-step process essentially. There's a conditional use permit for the triplex, and then it is a separate conditional use. If you remember the properties out at the Bruni Business Park, it was a separate conditional use. Originally when we wrote it was 1 conditional use permit you had to get a separate one per lot, and then we changed the ordinance so you could come and get them all at once, and that's what they did out here. So it is not appropriate under our code to submit for a multifamily triplex and also have the lot lines delineated on it, because that is a separate process under our zoning code. it makes sense that would happen there, but we're gonna have to tweak the code a little bit, and it'll have to be a separate process, just like it was with all the other properties that were out there. So Mr. Yeager, who did those properties out there, he bought those, they had conditional use permits for multifamily, and then he came back and got a separate conditional use permit to allow the lot split, which limited rebuilding on the particular piece of property. So there was a lot of discussion about it. Putting the lot lines on does not authorize them under the code to subdivide it. Bart and I talked about this issue, and we were talking about, well, maybe they could do a condo complex or they can do something else like that. There's no problem with doing it. It makes sense to do that there, but this is not what has been applied for or the process to approve those lot splits.
So the concern about this situation, if I recall, or not this one, but other ones, is that you had this building sitting on 3 separate lots, and each one of the separate lots was substandard, but as a total, it made sense for the project. If the building burns down, and somebody wants to come along and build a home on a subsidized lot, that's what we're trying to prevent.
That's what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to require them to build exactly what was there before, or close to what was there before, because you're allowing them a substandard lot. And this really was a byproduct of people, and including in this neighborhood, where they were building duplexes and then not going through our subdivision process to re-subdivide it. We didn't want to make those people that owned half a lot take away what the half lot they brought from the developer. So that's why we came up with that solution. And this is one of the neighborhoods where was an orphan lot that was there. And it makes sense to go there, but this is not the process we're here for tonight with regard to the subdivision. That is a separate conditional use process in their code.
So if we approve this tonight, what does it allow the owner developer to do?
It allows them to build a triplex, and then we will work with them to bring back in front of you the question of the, subdivided, to subdivide it below the standard lot size.
My position is that I very much think this fits in the area. I think there's another triplex in this development down the street. And I think it makes perfect sense to not keep requiring larger lots than people want, need, and can maintain. My concern is for the owners and the builders that in the future, when they or their heirs want to sell their triplex individually, that we've made sure that that's possible without doing a condo association and all of that. So my position is that I will vote to approve this tonight. I would like the city attorney and our staff to work with you to make sure that we come back and then get the lot lines appropriate, so that when you go through the title company, and I realize you've got some relationship there that can help you through that, but that in the future you've got something that's saleable without jumping through a bunch of hoops and going back. And we as a city in the past have tried to make exceptions, and we thought we were doing people favors, and only to have them come back and then have to get something redone when they then went to dispose of it or sell it at a later date. So I'm 100% in favor of allowing a triplex there. I just ask that you folks have patience, and our staff and attorney work to make sure it's correct for the future.
Any other comments or questions?
Feel the same way.
The next item that I have is also Lot 32, Arlington Way, on the conditional use permit. Same thing, P&Z approved this 6-0 with 1 abstention, 3 absent at the November 1st meeting, and there will be a Bill 6118 later on the agenda for approval. The next thing is Warrenton Storage Units, Site Plan 127. The site plan was approved by P&Z by 6-1 with 3 absent at the November 1st meeting. They had the conditions of revising the perimeter landscaping, which they supplied us an updated plan for that. no outside storage, the asphalt and concrete drive lanes, and a black chain link fence. As they discussed earlier, they did discuss a privacy fence in that area. We went back to the chief, and security was not a concern. There will be Bill 6218 later on the agenda for approval.
Yeah, I want to make one quick point about that. There was a comment made by the property owner. I'm sorry, I had that wrong. You're no longer the owner under contract, but the property owner, his engineer said that law enforcement would want site-proof fencing there at the front of the building. The staff's recommendation was, since a lot of it's in Warren County, since there's so many storage units along that area of Highway 47, it's kind of like Storage Row, that especially where this is in the vicinity of the city, to have where it faces the highway site-proof fencing so that it's a little bit concealed and doesn't just look like more of the storage units with the same thing. And the engineer made the comment that law enforcement wants to be able to see inside of there, and we talked to the chief, and the chief said, regardless of if it's site-proof or not site-proof, they would really prefer to just have a key, so if there's a call there, they can get into the property, but it didn't really make a difference if it was site-proof or not. And so we wanted to follow, I stated at the planning and zoning, we would follow up with the chief about that question. We also did request, because there was some concern with planning and zoning, even though it was approved, about how it would look from Highway 47 with regards to the existing building that's there. And there was a request we submitted late last week saying, can you provide us a cross-section? And the engineer did state that he would not be able to provide that for tonight, but he would work to get those cross-sections. So you could see what it actually looks like if you were standing from the outer road, what the cross-section would look like. And we also asked from the rear of the property, from the residential properties, what that cross-section would look like, because it is right there on the border with residential properties immediately behind it, and then the highway and kind of that commercial area. So they have not yet been able to provide that. They did ask that it would be approved tonight. However, you guys do have the option if you want to see that cross-section, because that's seen in talking to different cities, if there was a concern about the appearance of the front yard and the landscaping, the cross-section would probably be the most reasonable request to provide some visual look for the city to make sure that all the requirements are there, of what you guys would want to see were there. But they did revise the landscaping plan to add some landscaping. The owner is here, as you guys know, to answer any questions.
So, am I understanding the layout that I'm looking at? The trees and landscaping are to the south, and you would basically see those from Interstate 70. And then you've got the long building B that runs along the east side of the property, and then the other, literally the buildings C, D, E, and F are north of the existing building.
If you would, just come to the podium, that way they can hear you.
That's correct. So building B to, in my estimation, to about this point that you're looking up the hill is going to be seen as kind of a diagonal. You'll see part of the doors, and it'll gently slope up to where you would not see anything. You might see the very top of building C, but not the whole thing, or even close. D, E, F, G, most of A is going to be hidden, but you will see a couple there. So that was kind of my thinking. Is there's a good percentage of the facility that's hidden, so that's kind of why I was wanting the black chain link fence, which in my opinion still looks very good, but will allow a little bit of visibility because I would like to take advantage of that to some extent.
And I will point out, one of the concerns when staff looked at it, Melanie, can you scroll down to the bottom of it? Is that if you look where the American Legion is, that was the question, and kind of, they're grading this, A and B are going to jut out far past where the American Legion, I don't know if you want to address, they're going to raise the grade on that part of the property so you can bring the buildings forward. So that was a concern, although they're long and narrow, they are bringing them much closer to the highway, building A and B, and that was really the main concern, is how they're going to jut out.
When you scroll down just a little bit, so right here there's a billboard that that blocks a decent amount of view when you're heading westbound. We're putting the trees there to kind of help that as well. And from the north outer road, like I told you earlier, I think it's a very decent amount is actually hidden. So.
Any questions? Thank you.
Yep.
The next thing that I have for you is also Warrenton Storage Units, conditional use permit 61. Same thing that planning and zoning had the same conditions on this one. They passed it 6-1 with 3 absent at the November 1st meeting. And there will be Bill 6318 later on the agenda for approval.
And I'm going to vote to support this, but I just want to make a comment about market. You know, I mean, if somebody brings a business in, it's an issue what the market will bear. And that's the risk that you take as a developer. We've had people talk about we've got too many units in town already, and that's a business risk that you have to bear. The city council doesn't bear it. What we have to do is look at, is this property appropriate for the intended use? And that's really what we decide. But our risk isn't the market, your risk is the market. I think people need to realize that.
The next thing that I have is Orange Blossom Estates subdivision SUVD 65. This was the request to change the subdividing lines to create 2 lots out there. The one small lot, the current owner will maintain. The other one is the 29.25 acres that'll be purchased for this PUD. P&Z, both lots will meet code. P&Z approved this plan 6-1 with 3 absent at the November 1st meeting, and Bill 6418 will be later on the agenda.
Any questions?
The next thing is also Orange Blossom Estates, the zone change 58, requesting to change the 29.25 acres to be rezoned from ag to the R3. P&Z approved this also 6-1 with 3 absent at the November 1st meeting, and it will have a Bill 6518 later on the agenda. The next thing that I have is Orange Blossom Estates, the PUD 59. This application was for the senior living units, 170 units. P&Z approved this 7-0 with 3 absent at the November 1st meeting, with conditions that Chris had mentioned earlier, with Greystone Chapel continuing around the circle at after 18 months. The temporary turnarounds being put in, an easement being granted for future connection to the property to the west. The gated entrance for a second entrance for the fire department that'll come out at Fairgrounds, and a deed covenant of age 55 and older, as well as a covenant for maintenance of the property, and that they would check with MoDOT. All of these have been addressed. The Bill 6618 will be later on the agenda.
Any questions?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Maintenance and Grounds Director, Brad Buzikers.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You have my monthly report in front of you.
Any questions on the monthly report? Yeah, pretty easy, Brad.
Keeping it short.
Well, I'll ask a question.
There it goes.
Not to leave you left out. So I assume you're working on the roads in the new park. How are they holding up to the weather, or is it a constant battle every day?
The roads?
Yeah, inside the new park. I don't know if that's your question or.
That's what Mr. Giever's
Oh, you
question.
passed the park over to him now.
That's his street.
All
Yes.
right.
They're holding up. I mean, it's gonna take a little while to get the base built up, but there's still mud seeping up through them. But over time, we put more rock on them. I think they'll be fine.
And before we move on, I got one for you. Dyer Park,
the trees, I take it the weather now is a hold up on that?
Yeah, his truck's been down. We were supposed to be here today to do some work for us, and starter went out on the truck, and it's never-ending battle. But he's tells me he's going to be here tomorrow. But yes, then the weather's going to be where we're going to have it dry enough to get in there. So
I just want to thank Brad and his staff for the help in the dedication of the tribute to veterans.
Pleasure to do it for you.
Very, very well used, and appreciate everything, all the effort.
He's done it gone quickly, too.
Yeah. Good job.
Any other questions or comments?
Not for Brad.
Now you get away from it, Brad. Word from Public Works Director Guy Jeevers.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. First item is that we have almost all the sidewalk done on 47. The weather hit us to finish up, so I believe the plan is to pour that tomorrow. Temperature, checking the temperature. We did some culvert replacement. Had a water main break on Market Street. We had 5 sewer calls. 1 was on a private, 3 were on the city, and 1 was not in our area. The rock at the road at the park, you're going to get the mud for a while, then that settles in. It's that inch minus turning the mud, so we just got to keep dressing it up as we go. Other item I have, if you have any questions off my monthly report, I'd like to talk about the snow removal. So when we do the snow removal, our first goal is the snow routes, and they're out on the website and on Facebook, where the snow routes are. That's what we take care of first. And then we'll work on our secondary streets. So we'll do the snow routes, work on the secondary. If it continues to snow, then we'll go back to the snow routes. That's our main goal. That's including the fire, ambulance district, and all that. And then after the secondaries are all plowed and cleaned, then we'll go to our dead-end streets. And after the secondaries, the dead ends, then we'll jump from the dead ends and move to the cul-de-sacs. The cul-de-sacs are the last things that we do. So what we try to do is get everything open, and then we come back and do the cul-de-sacs. And then after that, we go back and push back the intersections and clean the intersections up, and then go and see where we missed the cars at. But the snow routes are the first things that we do, and that's priority. Everything else is as we continue. Last snowstorm we had, it started at 10. We couldn't finish with the snow routes. You get them opened up, we're going to move to the secondary ones, and then it would get hit again. So then we had to go back to the snow routes. So it took a little longer, but we got 9 inches of snow by 2 o'clock the next day. All the streets were clear. So the guys did a great job taking care of that.
I think they did an excellent job. I didn't get any complaints. I don't know if anybody else here did, but I sure didn't.
And I presume that you pay special attention to those streets that allow other emergency service organizations to get out.
That's on our snow routes, yes. And like I said, that's all on the website where snow routes are. Like I said, our first stop is the fire and ambulance. That's our first. So we might go in, we might not do all of the whole intersection down there all the way around. We're going to hit it, turn around, come back, make sure they're open.
What do we do, Guy, or how do we educate folks to not park vehicles on snow routes?
To be honest with you, I've never had, very seldom have an issue with vehicles parked on snow routes.
Really?
Normally the PD that's covering it, they're going to catch somebody, not catch, but somebody's going to be there. Officers are going to pull behind the car, run the plates, and then you need to move it, and it's gone. I've been here 7 or 8 years and never had an issue with a snow route. Main Street's not a snow route. MoDOT takes care of Main Street. All we do is a courtesy to do is the parking. So the reason why the parking usually gets done fairly quick is when we're heading out at night and there ain't nobody parked there, all we do is we just swerve over, hit it, and swerve back out because we're going someplace else. But that's not a snow route.
Any other questions? Comments?
I wanted to compliment Brandy and Terry for responding to a lady that had a concern about the snow removal. And I think that issue is done with, hopefully.
Well, along that same line, in the packet tonight was an email from property owner commending the good work that was done in the cul-de-sac along Balboa. So I think that's also recognition of the effort that your crew put in when it's not necessarily an easy job. So,
We got a good crew. I mean, they did a great job.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
All right. Next, we'll hear from the building commissioner, Mike Cross.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. You have my monthly report before you.
Any questions on his report?
Things still going well out at the old Bruni Park property. What's that called?
Oh,
Yes.
you catch me off guard.
What's the name, what is Bruni Park and we changed it to?
Forest Ridge, yes. It's going very well. I mean, he's putting a hole in the ground, they're sold already. So that's going very well. We're up to 56 homes now.
And those are single family, 2-3 bedroom?
Yes.
Feather in the cap. 56 homes. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll hear from the Chief of Police, Larry Eller.
Good evening, Board. First, I'd like to second what Public Works Director had to say about the snow routes. And the entire time I've been here, the citizens have been great about moving their vehicles off the snow routes. And usually all it takes is a knock on the door and they're gone. I think maybe in the almost 20 years I've been here, we've towed 2 or 3 cars. So it's really, the citizens are great about keeping up with the ones that are actually on the snow route that are posted. So the second item I have for you is my monthly report.
I guess simple question, what's a dab pin?
What's a what?
A dab pin? On the reporting, it said a student had a dab pin in their backpack. What is that? I mean,
It's we actually had one of these cases come in as drug paraphernalia. They are with the legal dab.
Dab,
Okay.
DAB.
Dab.
No. Okay.
So the legalization of marijuana, the illegal marijuana seems to come over, and it's the concentrated wax-like substance that is, I guess, in some type of pen, like a vapor pen, I guess. And they smoke it in there, so somebody at school was, I assume, caught with one of those.
Okay, I've never heard it before.
Sorry, I misheard you.
He was thinking.
What do you mean thinking what kind of dab? Chris, would you like to give us an example? Thank you.
I think Scott does much better than me. Alderman Schultz, the great dab.
Any other questions on the report? Go ahead.
The other items I have for you is 2 policies for your approval. The first is a revision to the written directive system. There's just a language change about who's responsible for some reporting. And then field interviews and pat downs is a new one that's up for your review, and that just covers the constitutionality of field interviews and pat downs.
Who's pat downs?
Who's a pat down?
No. We don't need no illustrations tonight. That's thank you.
Any questions on the policy?
Mike's lonely, he wants a pat.
I can describe it in my younger days.
In your younger days.
Any questions regarding the policies and procedures? I'll entertain a motion to approve the following written directive system and field interviews and pat downs policies.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, second by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello? Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Anything else, Chief?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Bills to ordinance. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 58-18.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, second by Alderman Deloy.
An ordinance accepting the boundary adjustment for lots 221 and 222, the meadows along the Hollow Plat 3 by the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 58-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, second by Alderman Shell Harvey.
An ordinance accepting the boundary adjustment for lots 221 and 222, the meadows of Walnut Hollow Plat 3 by the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 58-18, or correction, 60-18.
So moved.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Costello.
A zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for a triplex on lot 32 Arlington Way located at 1014, 1016, and 1018 Arlington Way.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 60-18.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, was that Alderman Deloy? Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Deloy.
A zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for a triplex on lot 32 Arlington Way located at 1014, 1016, and 1018 Arlington Way.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 61-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Shell Harvey.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit to allow a triplex on lot 32 Arlington Way located at 1014, 1016, and 1018 Arlington Way.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 61-18.
Second. First,
Second.
I thought the younger people would be quicker down there.
Motion made by Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Miller.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit to allow a triplex on lot 32 Arlington Way located at 1014, 1016, and 1018 Arlington Way.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 62-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Ock.
A zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for Warrenton storage units located at 1209 Northeast Service Road.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 62-18.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Miller.
A zoning ordinance is authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for Warrenton storage units located at 1209 Northeast Service Road.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 63-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Ock.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit to allow Warrenton Storage, a storage unit facility located at 1209 Northeast Service Road.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 63-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Schultz.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit to allow Warrenton Storage, a storage unit facility located at 1209 Northeast Service Road.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz? Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 64-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Ock.
An ordinance accepting the plat of the subdivision known as Orange Blossom Estates by the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 64-18.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Miller.
An ordinance accepting the plat of the subdivision known as Orange Blossom Estates by the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey.
Yes.
Alderman Costello.
Yes.
Alderman Ock.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 65-18.
So moved.
Second.
And guys all at the same time, who wants to take it?
Go here.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Ock.
An ordinance authorizing the rezoning of approximately 29.25 acres located at 2007 North Highway 47 from AG Agricultural and C3 Highway Commercial to R3 High Density Residential and amending the zoning district map thereon.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 65-18.
So moved.
Second.
Right. We'll go with motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Shell Harvey.
An ordinance authorizing the rezoning of approximately 29.25 acres located at 2007 North Highway 47 from AG Agricultural and C3 Highway Commercial to R3 High Density Residential and amending the zoning district map thereon.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey.
Yes.
Alderman Costello.
Yes.
Alderman Ock.
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for the first reading and first reading of bill number 66-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Miller.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit for Orange Blossom Estates, a proposed planned unit development with senior housing located at 2007 North Highway 47.
I'll entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 66-18.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Deloy.
An ordinance approving the conditional use permit for Orange Blossom Estates, a proposed planned unit development with senior housing located at 2007 North Highway 47.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey.
Yes.
Alderman Costello.
Yes.
Alderman Ock.
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I will entertain a motion to close the regular Board of Aldermen.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That is the majority. We are so adjourned.